Hey everyone, here's another episode of Turn Fit in the Community. Today we're lucky enough to be with Michael Stone with Quantum Consulting Group. And he's also on a radio show, right, Michael?
Yes, that's right. Conversations with Michael Stone. 15 years I've been leading a lot of having a lot of the leading edge thinkers in environmental sustainability, social justice, and spiritual fulfillment. And it's interesting, when I started at David 15 years ago, it was primarily environmental. And over the years, I've realized it's going to take a spiritual and evolutionary awakening to save us from the direction we're going. So now it's much more mindfulness and meditation and growth, personal and spiritual growth.
Yeah, and when I met you and I heard just a little bit about that, I was like, wow, that's amazing, because like what I preach and teach constantly is we're all super stressed, we're all too busy, we're all go, 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 go. And you put it super simple. So like, for example, most people, when they come to see me before they even train with Turn Fit, they come in and they're like, I'm crazy busy, and they don't realize how stressed they are. Actually, they wouldn't say they're stressed. Even people I've met where they're forced off of work by a doctor's note, when I ask them what their stress level is on a scale of 1 to 10, usually they're like, it's like a 5 or 6, but their body's fried. Yeah. So yeah, as soon as I met you and you started talking about stress and kind of we're our biggest enemy and everything, like, do you have any tips for people that are stressed out that don't even know?
Well, I have a lot to say about it. As you know, I mean, I've been in the corporate world teaching for 40 years. So stress is an interesting word. And I actually have a lot of people say to me, I am stressed. Maybe it's because you are, David, a walking example of being cool, being fit, and focused with your energy. But I have people often, especially in the organizational world, saying, I'm so stressed. It's almost like a badge of courage. You know, somebody else say, yeah, and I'm so busy. You know, maybe they say busy, but, you know, it's like a racket. It's this thing that people say, and they're using valuable time just talking about it and reinforcing it. So stress is one of these words that actually doesn't say anything. It's like sick. If people say I'm sick, what does that mean? I have a sore throat or I have terminal cancer. You can't, without knowing what's underneath the phantom word sick, you can't really treat. A doctor can't treat the symptoms. Yeah. The same way with stress. You have to get underneath stress. So what does stress actually mean? Stress means something is too much. So then you got a clue now. Oh, too much of what? Well, when we say we're stressed, we say that our personal and professional capacity and our identity is inadequate to meet the challenges that I'm facing at this time. Yeah. So, two key words there: personal capacity and identity are two areas we can look at. So when you actually look at capacity, and what I do, and I know you do in your work too, is I work with the mental, emotional, and physical capacity. And really, the body is the whole deal, ultimately. It all is in the body, and I know you know that from the work that you do. But if it's an emotional thing, emotions are of the body. Feelings are of the mind, but that still has a reciprocal impact on our health and our body. So what we need to do is learn how to build the capacity, the mental, physical, and emotional capacity. Well, we do that in a number of ways. One of the ways is meditation, or mindfulness, as many people call it, to have a focused awareness, a focused attention, to know how to quit jumping around. Oh, I got to look at the internet. I got to do this. I got the TV playing and the news in the background, you know. We've got to learn to focus our attention and follow. So that's part of what you learn in doing meditation and mindfulness. We need to be able to open our awareness, the other side of that, because sometimes we get so buried in like being on Facebook or something that we don't actually recognize all the things that are emerging that could relieve our stress. And then I think a big part of it is having an intention of loving awareness
Right.
towards, first of all, ourself. So what does that mean? Well, we have this thing called, I call it our I-hood, our identity. And for the most part, we act and think as though we actually are the identity. One of the things that meditating allows us to do is to become a witness, because when you're meditating and this chatter is going on, you go, well, who's watching that? And when we can move out a little bit from our I-hood and get out of the chat room, we actually already have started to increase our capacity. And we recognize that we have very repetitive stories that come mostly from our early childhood, from places where we had to dissociate to protect ourselves, or where we had a traumatic experience that we suppressed. One of the things that happens when you meditate, and why it's hard for people, is as we begin to get more spacious, those places where we suppressed a part of our essence start to get released. And that's hard for people to be with when they think they're that, because the identity has only one purpose, and that's its own survival.
Yeah.
So we're up against a mighty foe with the identity, but it's not against, it's a matter of really being able to embrace whatever arises. You begin to, through mindfulness, learn to see the repetitive patterns, the things where we have scarcity. I'm not enough, there's not enough, there's no good men, there's no good women, I can't do that, I'm only this way. All of these, we have maybe 8 or 10 repetitive patterns. So we begin to go on a path of exploration and wonder and curiosity. How can I deconstruct the identity from this place of witness? And then I can bring some spaciousness to it. Once we do that, we begin to be able to be creative about creating a new way of being. And the physical is so important, because you create a different way of being and speaking and holding your body, and you begin to shift those areas. However, there's a problem. We've been talking about how stressed or busy we are, or how I can't do this, or I can't keep my money together for so long that we've sold our environment on the belief of who we are.
Yeah.
Well, that's a problem. It's like being a drug user. You get 60 to 90 days, you're a drug user, you're clean, you come out on the street, what do? You go back to your clan, your people.
Yeah.
48 hours later, you're using again. It's the same with identity patterns that you've got. You go back out into the world, and if you haven't found a way to transform the way that people listen to you so that they start to see you in a different way, then they're going to reinforce that, and you'll be back in the same behavior. So what does it take to do that? It takes authentic sharing and telling what you're going through. I was meditating the other day, and I realized that I have this reoccurring pattern in my life that money is scarce. And every time I start making money, I realize that I sabotage myself. And as my friend, David, I want you, when I start talking about money, I want you to support me, because I'm not going to speak about how money is scarce anymore. Actually, I know that there's as much money in the world as you could possibly have, and I want to let it flow through me. And to do that, I have to tell my friends, hey, will you support me when I start speaking like this? That begins to shift the listening of the other person, and it begins to shift the field that you live in. So those are a few things, much more than that, but that's a little idea of what we can do to increase our capacity, and what we can do to begin to challenge this very stable, not stable, it's not stable at all, but it's very fixed identity that we think we are that identity. And as soon as we can find a little break from that, and that's why I teach meditation, mindfulness, and belief change work, that we need to change our beliefs. So we have our perception, we see the world, we create beliefs about the world from our experiences, our family, our ancestors. We have these beliefs about the world that forms our worldview. And then we look out at the world and our actions are correlated to the beliefs that we have, which aren't necessarily true, but they're who we consider ourselves to be. So that's a little bit about the work I do.
Yeah, no, and I love it. And I really like that you mentioned the part where you're actually asking for help when you're trying to change your environment. And we're taught lots of times that not to ask for help.
Yeah.
So it's nice that you mentioned that, and you're saying just changing the language. Also, first of all, you're telling yourself, but you have to also change the language that everybody else is. So again,
well,
if you're
you and I are men, right?
Yeah.
We were brought up in a culture, be strong, be tough. I mean, my father was a fighter pilot. I come home crying, I got in a fight, he'd say, go kick his ass. That was how I grew up.
Yeah.
Be strong. Don't, it's just the opposite. Strength is vulnerability. Strength is the willingness to move with life, not against the flow of life, but to learn to move with life in congruence with it, and to have our mental, physical, and emotional capacities be in alignment. Some people are running around really angry, but they're like this with this big smile. That is not being congruent with your life. Deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. And we're also taught that it's not okay to be angry, when in fact, actually, it is okay to be angry, but as long as you're not just angry for no reason, you're like, okay, today I'm angry. Why am I angry? And then you're trying to figure out these things. And it's like, you know what? Actually, I wasn't angry. I was sad. Again, because we're guys, we're taught that don't cry, possibly. And so when we're trying not to hide that, and then it turns into anger. Yeah. Or maybe it's, I was in traffic, somebody cut me off. Well, that made me angry. Okay, what about it made me angry? Well, I just need more space. I need more space. So maybe he cuts you off, but you're not thinking it's being cut off because that was perfectly fine for you. That was enough space. So like as we dig it more into each thing, and ask ourselves and ask everybody else to support us, and just changing language.
Well, anger, you were right. Something I want to underline that you said that most people don't get. Pretty much always under anger is a river of sadness. You're right on in that area. And if you're willing to go deep, you discover that. Something else about anger, it needs to be expressed, but it doesn't want to be sent. The difference between expressing your anger, put your head in a pillow and scream or whatever, and sending anger, anger is things. It's a thing that causes pain. So this is true. We send this out to people, these arrows of anger, when in fact, what anger really is about, and sometimes we're unwilling to do this, is to have clear boundaries. If we don't have clear boundaries with people, and if you're someone that doesn't have clear boundaries, you need to learn how to do that staccato. No, that doesn't work with me, and do it with love and joy, but set your boundaries, because we tend to blame other people when we haven't set strong boundaries.
Yeah, and they don't know. How could they know if we didn't tell them?
We didn't tell them, right? Exactly.
Yeah, and I know where we live, like in Vancouver and in Canada, we're often told that we're overly too friendly, and maybe that's the reason why. Maybe you're like, oh, I don't want to tell them my boundaries because it will hurt their feelings. But you're not taking care of you. And they're not intentionally trying to hurt you, but you're letting them now hurt you because you didn't give them an opportunity to do anything else, because their autopilot is to perform a certain way. And if you're like, okay, I just need, maybe even walking side by side, maybe I just need you to stand just a tiny bit that way because this is my area that I need. Maybe that's my spatial area I just need. And when you're standing so close to me, it's building up my anger, and you don't even no. But if I said, hey, Michael, we're doing the walk and talk right now, but can you just stand over like 2 feet? I have this weird issue, and I need my space. You'd be like, well, I assume you'd be like, okay, fine.
Yeah, another thing about that, David, too, that's important to remember is that what we're angry about is pretty much never what we're actually angry about. We're triggering something from our remembered past, not even the real past. We're triggering something from the remembered past that has come up for us. So I love what Ellen DeGeneres said about Canadians. She said, well, we're nice, but we're not that nice. And that's true. That's a lot of the niceness is kind of like this social thing. Don't, and when underneath you can feel in your body, this kind of anger that some people have. And it's like, give it up, be who you are, what people want these days. And this is so true about sharing our work and stuff. People want real,
Yeah.
people want real. So let's get real about it and do truth together.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And so basically the common theme is a little bit of more communication. I mean, structured in a proper way will help strengthen all relationships, including the relationship you have with yourself.
Yeah.
And that's why I was excited to meet you, and excited and grateful for the opportunity to talk with you and help get you to share with everybody some of this. And hopefully we'll do a little bit more talks.
Can I say something about the workshop I have
yes,
coming?
I was just gonna ask you about that.
Yeah, I would love to have people. It's not this weekend, but the following weekend, the 4th and 5th of May. It's Avicenna Center, which is on Robson Street in West End, 4th floor there. And it's an amazing venue. You can find out more by going to either Well of Light, that's WELOFLIGHT.com, or quantumconsultinggroup.org. And we're really going to be getting underneath this stress thing and learning ways to deal with overwhelm, stress, anxiety through meditation, mindfulness. We'll be teaching some very simple things that you can do to work with and actually use your anxiety and your stress and overwhelm as a portal to deepening your own evolution, your own growth, your own awareness, which at this time, the world needs your gifts. And this is a way that you can really tap into the gifts that you were born with that need to be expressed into the world right now. So it's from 10 to 5 on Saturday and Sunday, the 4th and 5th of May. You can text me at 530-277-0927 or call me, and we'll get you set up.
Awesome. And then if for some reason they're watching this after the event, and you always have your events updated on those 2 sites, is that correct?
There's always new events. I have a weekly radio show with some of the great minds in the world on KVMR, radio.org. I've been doing it for 15 years. Always really, this week was Dan Siegel, one of the leading thinkers in belief change and attachment theory, and psychiatrist. And just, I have incredible people on there, so you can go do that. I'm also on the faculty of the Shift Network, so you can check that out also.
All right. So I'll get Michael to send me all that information so that I can include it with you so you can find him no matter where he is. He often is traveling around the world or having content at least around the world. So I wanted to thank you again very much for being a part of this episode. And for the viewers, if you tried any of these techniques or want to try them and you're not sure where to start, just comment below and we'll guide you. We'll point you in the right direction or communicate with Michael. And yeah, thank you so much.
And David, thank you for your amazing work. You are a walking, living example of what you teach. So it's really great to be with you, being real all the time.
Thank you so much. Okay, cheers.